Earle is one of the greatest women scientists in oceanography. She's an explorer, deep-sea diver, author, lecturer, and marine scientist who received a PhD in philosophy at Duke University. She has led over 70 expeditions, logging in more than 6,500 hours, including projects such as underwater livability experiments. She helped develop new deep-sea technology for exploring the vast unknown ocean.
Aside from her underwater science expeditions, her goal has always been to raise public awareness about the damage being done to our atmosphere by pollution, overfishing, and has led many of the problems are ocean acidification and environmental degradation. Sylvia Earle won the 2009 TED Prize for her proposal to establish a global network of marine protected areas. Titles are Exploring the Deep Frontier and the most recent one,
On a final note, Sylvia Earle is a fascinating individual with her goal to save and restore the blue heart of the planet Earth. Without further ado, please join us in welcoming Dr. Sylvia Earle.
Jane's little speech, she begins by giving some chimpanzee conversation, but I can try with a few little whale songs. It goes like woo, woo. Oh. Anybody can do that. How about it? Woo, woo. Oh. Actually, the range of sounds that our fellow marine mammals make run from far below where we can hear the sounds to far above where we can hear the sounds. And in the ocean, sound is really important. Vision is too. Lots of things matter to the creatures in the sea. But I personally am glad to be here with a room full of terrestrial sea creatures. You know, just as every whale, every dolphin, every starfish, every coral reef, they have to have the ocean, but so do we. It took me a while to understand that it doesn't matter where on the world you live, even if you never see the ocean. You're so lucky living here in Southern California where seeing the ocean is, ooh, watch this. I can be, you can see the ocean. A lot of people never in their entire lives never get to see, let alone touch the ocean. But here's the thing. The ocean touches everyone, everything on the planet. With every breath you take, you're connected to the ocean, wherever you live. It may be thousands of miles from that's a whale song. And here's how. You know, we know that oxygen comes from trees and grass and other green things, but most of the green things on the planet are out there in the ocean, and most of them are very small. In fact, some are so small that they weren't even discovered until the middle of the 1980s. Now, for some of you, that was a long time ago. But it wasn't that long time ago, geologically speaking, or even in terms of human history. It was just a short time ago. And yet, those little organisms, I'll tell you the name, and you should learn the name. That should be on a t-shirt. It's called Prochlorococcus. 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 You could make a little song. Prochlorococcus. 20%, 1 in every 5 breaths you take, comes from that one kind of little photosynthesizing bacterium that lives in the sea. Who knew? Nobody knew until a method for finding them in the ocean was discovered. It was actually a woman scientist, Penny Chisholm, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who, with her colleagues on an expedition out to a part of the ocean where the water is so clear it doesn't look as though anything lives there at all. But they were able to use a different technique than had ever been tried before. It wasn't a net, it wasn't filter that is sometimes used to get the very small things out of the ocean. It was a new technique that enabled them to discover Prochlorococcus. Prochlorococcus. I mean, how could we not know that? But then think about this. Of all the creatures who live on Earth, we've only named about 1.5 million of them. About 500,000 are insects. And all the rest embrace all the other creatures who live on the land and in the sea. We're the only ones who can think about questions such as, what is air? Well, other creatures may wonder. I imagine dolphins. Dolphins are pretty smart, and so are elephants. A lot of creatures, cats, dogs, they may look at the stars at night and wonder what are they? What are those twinkly things up there? But we have the capacity to figure it out. And you, all of us, who are alive on the planet today, are the luckiest people who've ever lived so far. Maybe the next generation will be luckier still, depending on what we do, you do, or don't do. Because you are the beneficiaries of all of those who have gone before. Humans have this capacity to pass along what they know. They put it in books, they put it in family traditions, they put it in songs. Well, whales perhaps put some knowledge, some information, some cultural heritage in the sounds that they make, but they can't write it down. They can't store it beyond what can go from one individual to another. We have, one of my soulmates is somebody I never met. I'm going to show you a little image of him shortly. He explored the ocean, and then he wrote about it, and he took pictures. And then as a kid, I read about it. And I thought, oh, that's so cool. I want to do that. And it's what got me going. That and getting acquainted with the ocean the way you can here in the waters of Southern California that I did not get to see for a long time in my life. I never got to see those beautiful kelps, those brown algae, the seaweeds that come washing ashore. Actually, they live out there in the ocean. Sometimes they come to the shore and you can see them if you don't go into the ocean yourself. I think of this as a sweet spot in all of history, because never before could we, you, anybody, know what we now know. Nobody knew when I was a kid what Earth from space looked like. Now you see it all over the place, billboards, magazines. If you haven't seen that view of Earth from space, look around. You can find it pretty easily. Now you can find it on a little electronic thing that you carry in your pocket, your cell phone. You know, you can download the Library of Congress, for heaven's sakes. You can travel the world with that thing you hold your... Imagine if Leonardo da Vinci had access to what you have access to. He would have been so thrilled and probably just set off a whole new revolution of, I mean, he had such a good brain, but so do you. That's the cool thing. Everybody has something special about them. You may not know one of my personal heroes, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers is now history. He's gone, at least physically, but his attitude, his stories, some of his films are still out there. I turn on the television once in a while, there's Mr. Rogers, for heaven's sakes, taking us into his neighborhood and telling you, you're special, whoever you are. Doesn't matter what you look like, or what your brain power happens to be. Some of you have a little talent for music, some of you have a way with numbers, some with words, some of you have better muscles than somebody else. Whatever it is, a touch of art is yours. Whatever it is, you have a talent that makes you you. And you should never, ever, for a single moment, think that you aren't somebody special, because you are. Everybody is. Now, it was actually not until 1970, before most of you were born, that I had a revelation underwater about seeing how special all creatures are. Humans, we have an edge. We've got this computer on our shoulders. the ability to communicate now as never before. But I had a chance to live underwater for 2 weeks. I mean, staying underwater. 50 feet of water over my head. Well, I was dry about half the time, staying in an underwater laboratory, swimming out into the ocean as much as 8 or 10 hours a day, night, 12 hours, half the day, out in the water, getting to see the creatures. That's when I got to see fish in ways other than swimming in lemon slices and butter. Now, I mean, I'm a scientist and I'd seen fish diving before, but to actually sit in one part of a reef, day and night, I got to see where individual fish live. Some of them sleep in certain places at night. They come out in the morning and swim around. Some of them team up like buddies. There were 5 angelfish that would swim around in a tight little group. They were young ones. When they get to be full-grown size, they tend to pair off, and like some humans, they tend to pair for life. Huh, what a concept. I got to recognize their faces. I got to recognize, out of all the barracuda, and there were quite a few who love to hang out around where we are, some were really curious, some were shy, some just couldn't be bothered to come over and look at us at all. But they were all, different. I could see their spots were different, their attitude was different. So it isn't just you. You, each of you, you're all special. It's true with the shrimp, it's true with the crab, it's true with everything. The great individual nature of life on Earth. No 2 trees exactly alike. If you get all the leaves on a tree, line them up, you won't find any 2 leaves exactly alike if you really look closely. I think it's one of the miracles of life. And having a chance to see it in the ocean brought that home to me. And the other big miracle is how we're all connected. And the chemistry of life binds us all. And again, all of us as humans, of course. But we're connected to fish, we're connected to trees, we're connected to all the little guys that live under the rocks out there in the ocean or in a kelp forest or far upstream. And I just hope that whatever else it is you do with your life, and you're going to do a lot of different things. Looking at this group, there will be some perhaps who choose marine science as your passion. Maybe it's already there, and you'll just follow it right to be your goal in life. Or maybe you'll be a lawyer, or a doctor, or maybe you'll be a teacher, or a car mechanic. Whatever it is you are, it doesn't matter. Know that the natural world keeps you alive. That 20% of the oxygen in the atmosphere that you breathe, 1 in every 5 breaths, comes from a little green creature out there in the ocean that pumps oxygen into the atmosphere. It gets wafted around the world. You're breathing it right now. And it's also generating food. It takes up carbon dioxide in the process of photosynthesis, driving the great ocean food webs. All that affects you, too. Know these things. It's a part of your heritage. It's part of the gift of being alive right now, is knowing what nobody, not your parents, not your grandparents, not the smartest people who've ever lived before could know, because you're gifted with being alive right now, with a capacity to tap into not just the 7 billion brains that now exist on the planet, but all of those billions of brains that ever have existed on the planet. I mean, it's pretty staggering when you think of it. Well, as a kid, I started out, like everybody else, curious. I get asked, how did you get to be explorer in residence? The National Geographic. Sounds like such a cool thing to be, and it is. And the pathway to getting there started when I was born, with the curiosity that is not unique to humans, but we have a special endowment of curiosity. Exploration is sort of following curiosity to some logical conclusion. It's made tangible. So that leads to asking questions. Who, what, why, where, when, how? That's what kids do, and that's what scientists do. That's what explorers do. And don't let anybody ever stop you from asking questions. There are a lot of people who'd like for you to not ask, just accept what I say, and that's it. But that's not what scientists do. They constantly ask questions. Well, how do you know that? Why are you doing that? What's it going to lead to? Help me out. What's it mean? You can ask questions nobody has answers to, and that's really cool. 5-year-old kids ask the toughest questions of all. And you're not 5 years old, you probably ask some even tougher ones. Ed Wilson, who's one of my other heroes, who's at Harvard University, his specialty is ants, but he's a pretty good guy anyway, in spite of all that. But he also, because he's looked at ants and how many variations on the theme, he looks at their faces, sees how they're all individual, even though you got a pile of ants, they all do very much look alike, and if an ant crawled into this room, he'd think we all look pretty much alike, but he asks the big questions like, who are we? Where do we come from? And where are we going? Where, from this point in time, are we going? And where did we come from? Here's this rock, this planet, blessed with water, hurtling through not just the solar system, but the universe. It's a miracle that life exists at all. And I think it's a good idea to ask the question, where do we come from? And it's a good idea to ask, who are we? And a really great idea to ask, where are we going? And to realize you have a part in finding answers to all of those questions. So I'm going to show you with this image that is so special in our time. I mean, imagine being able to flip open your little cell phone and hold the world in your hands. I think, having been with the National Geographic for now some years, I really appreciate the ability to look at a globe differently than was the case when I was a child. But now with Google Earth, you can dive into the ocean. There's something called ocean in Google Earth. There is even a street view now for the ocean. Divers are taking special cameras underwater, and you can sort of hitch a ride with them vicariously, looking over their shoulder, to see what they see. Now, no substitute for being there. I hope that you will all get a chance to live underwater, that you'll at least put a face mask on and explore the ocean on your own. I love the idea that part of what you're doing here is connecting cities to the sea. So wherever cities are, here in the mountains of Switzerland, on the other side of the world, people were gathered this year, last year, the year before, talking about the global economy. And on the balance sheet, along with a lot of other things, is the ocean. For the first time, we're beginning to realize that unless we take care of the ocean, unless we explore the ocean and understand it, we're missing out. The ocean just governs the way the world works, climate, weather. It's where most of life on Earth actually is, because water is the key to life. Well, when I was a kid, I promised you that I would show you a friend I never got to meet, William Beebe, who in the 1930s, 100 years after Darwin began exploring, William Beebe and an engineer friend, Otis Barton, decided they would do something nobody else had done before, build a submarine to take them, a scientist and an engineer, as much as half a mile beneath the surface of the ocean. It was the first time that humans had done such a thing. Again, it seems like a long time ago, 1933, but you know, it isn't so long ago when you think of all the people who have ever lived. They were the first ones to actually go down with a submarine with a little window in it to explore what was in the depths below. A half a mile down, they saw what William Beebe described as wonderful things like comets, suns, and stars, these creatures in the sea, many with the ability to make their own light. It's one of the most common forms of communication on the planet. Not sound, not the other things, not smell, but light, bioluminescence, living light. Some of the best bioluminescence I have ever seen is right on the beach out here in Southern California at night in the late summer. Little microorganisms that make this magical living light live in the water, and when they get in the sand, you can run along the beach and your every footstep is like it's on fire, blue fire. I hope you will take the opportunity to search out the right time and place to make that experience happen. And then to go diving at night with those glorious bioluminescent creatures. It's like being an astronaut. You just are covered with stars as you fly through the water. So much that's there for everyone to do, one way or the other. I wanted to do this when I was a kid, but it was years before I was actually able to do it. And to get together with engineers the way William Beebe did, to conspire and figure out how do we make submarines that don't have a cable connecting them back to the surface, free-swimming submarines. And right here in California, right up the coast, near Oakland, we actually started first one, then a second, then a third company. I mean, how do you start a company? Well, I didn't have a clue. I'm a scientist. But it's something you learn by doing. We live in a country where it's possible to do what you might think of in other countries at other points in history is impossible. But it isn't. Use your talent. Use, most of all, whatever it is that you love to guide you toward whatever pathway it turns out to be. Go explore the ocean. I mean, think of all the people who haven't yet seen the sea. I hope there's no one in this room who has not yet seen the sea, but it wouldn't be surprising. I know there are people in Los Angeles who just keep their back to the ocean. They've just never seen the ocean, never thought about it as a living system filled with these glorious creatures that generate oxygen, take up carbon dioxide, drive the way the planet works. They just kind of take it for granted. Now we know that the ocean keeps us alive. And now we also know we have to return the favor. We have to really do things like protect the ocean. Be careful what we put in it, what we take out of it, and have areas in the ocean, really sensitive places, like Catalina Island, and protect them. And it's happening. It's happening. Early in the 20th century, there were people in this country, notably President Theodore Roosevelt, who started an idea that was referred to by some as the best idea America ever had, that is to have national parks. And now a similar idea is taking hold for the ocean. Not very much protected yet, about 2% of the ocean. But here's the thing. On your watch, in your time, you can take action to do something about learning about these creatures in the sea and making sure that they have a long and prosperous future in the same way that we hope that human beings will too. Okay, I think we can stop the film right there in that big jelly patch. And let me just close with a couple of comments. Yeah, I lived here as a neighbor in Los Angeles for 5 years, associated with the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles. And I really love this part of the world. It's a special place. And I don't know how many of you were actually born here, how many of you have arrived here from some distant place. But whatever it is that you regard as your home base, think of the ocean. Think of the ocean as your home as well. If your heart is what keeps you partly alive, you know, everybody has to have a heart that beats. Think of the ocean as the heart, the blue heart of the planet, that keeps the planet in good shape. We have to take care of it literally as if our lives depend on it, because they do. Thank you.
What an honor to meet a legend. I'm so lucky, and I'm just so grateful to be here. Mark Friedman, a lot of educators, USC, especially the Marine Bio Club, helped me to create City to Sea. I started, originally it was called the Kids and Fishing Program years ago. with the idea of getting these students involved with some activities to clean up the environment, and as a reward, take them out in the ocean to let them know what they work so hard to protect. 2010, we transformed to City to Sea. One of our board members saw us go by with 14 kids in the bow and said we need a bigger boat. And he also said we need more microscopes, we need more science. And with the help of the Marine Bio Club and Mark Friedman, we transformed it into a scientific expedition.
Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what your thoughts on with Women's History Month coming up. Who was your female role model, and what message would you give girls out there right now?
I had a teacher in the 9th grade who, well, she made me think it was okay to be different. But there's another person who had a big impact, not a woman, and this was Jim Miller, who headed the program during the time that I first had a chance to live underwater. He had to decide whether women and men could both participate, because nobody expected women to do so at the time. There were no women astronauts in 1970. But he said famously at the time, well, half the fish are female, half the dolphins, half the whales. So I guess we can have a few women, they'll do all right. And of course we did. But that's, you think, look at the birds flying. They do all these tricky things in the sky, and they do them side by side. What's with us anyway? That we think that, oh, you can't fly, you can't dive. Well, of course we can. Don't be discouraged because somebody has in their head that you can't do something.